My name's Erin. I'm 25 and I work at a small interior design firm out in Seattle. My job keeps me busy, sure, but I love it. It's one of the few things in my life I actually got to pick for myself. The rest? Well, let's just say my voice doesn't carry much weight in my family. I've got an older sister, Lauren. She's 3 years ahead of me. She's married with 2 boys, twins, all 5 years old. Lauren's the type of person who somehow manages to make everything about her, and for reasons I'll never understand, my parents seem to think that's just fine. Me? I'm the backup plan. If I'm free, I'm babysitting. If I'm tired, I'm still babysitting. Even when I'm supposed to be off enjoying myself, I somehow end up wrangling those boys again. Last year, we had a family vacation planned out on the Oregon coast, a trip I'd been counting down to for months. I got my time off work sorted way ahead of time. I couldn't wait to stroll the beach, hunt down some cozy coffee shops, and finally hit up this art exhibit I'd been wanting to see for years. Mom said she'd take care of booking the hotel for everyone, and she promised I'd actually get a chance to relax this time. Sounded perfect, right? But the moment we arrived, I found out I'd be bunking with the 3 boys, while Lauren and her husband kicked back in their own fancy suite, ocean view and all. Before I could even get a word out, Mom was already pressing a room key into my hand, smiling like it was the best news in the world. "The boys love you, Erin," she said. "They won't be any trouble." No trouble? That first night was chaos. One kid cried nonstop over a missing teddy bear and another tore the room apart hunting for the TV remote. I barely got a wink of sleep, lying there in the pitch black, listening to the sound of tiny snores and heavy breathing, wishing I could just disappear. The next morning, all I wanted was a single hour to sneak away and visit the art exhibit, the one thing I was really looking forward to. I was halfway through getting dressed when my phone buzzed. It was Lauren. "Where are you going?" "Tyler's heading out. Can you watch the kids for a bit?" That bit turned into almost 3 hours. When I tried talking to Mom about it, she just smiled and said gently, "You're staying for free, sweetie. It's only fair you pitch in a little." Free? I wanted to yell. I wasn't freeloading. I had a job, I paid for my bus ticket, and I took PTO just to make this trip happen. But every time I tried to speak up, they just gave me that look, the one that made me feel like I didn't belong. Like I was the selfish one. That whole vacation, I only made it down to the beach once. Meanwhile, Lauren kept flooding our group chat with spa selfies, cafe brunches, even snapshots of her getting a foot massage. Me? I spent my days sweeping up cookie crumbs, swapping out stained shirts for clean ones, and answering endless calls of, "Aunt Erin, can I?" I didn't say much back then. I just packed my bags in silence when it was time to leave and swore to myself, never again. But turns out I was wrong. This year, another family trip's brewing and my parents are already making plans like nothing's changed. Nobody asked me what I thought. They just sent the itinerary along with a cheerful little message. "Summer trip. We're all going together, just like every year." I stared at the group chat, my hands shaking a little. Did they honestly think I'd just fall back into that babysitter role without a second thought? I started typing a response. This time I wasn't keeping quiet. As I was about to hit send, another message popped up from Mom. "This year's trip will be so much fun, Erin. You're riding with us again, right?" I booked 2 rooms, one for the kids, one for the adults. I sucked in a deep breath and answered, "Thanks, Mom, but this year, I'm driving myself." I already booked my own room. Barely 3 minutes passed before my phone started buzzing. It was Mom. "Erin, what's going on? Why would you book your own room?" I had everything arranged. "Mom," I said, steady as I could, "I need my own space. Last year, I didn't get a real break. I want this trip to feel like an actual vacation." There was a long pause. Then her voice dropped, full of disappointment. "But that means you'll be separating from the family. Lauren's gonna have her hands full, and who's gonna help when she needs a breather?" "I'm not the nanny, Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I work hard, I earn my own money, and I'm not about to repeat last year's mess." That night, Lauren flooded my phone with a long text. She said she was exhausted, overwhelmed, and hurt that I wasn't stepping up like before. She reminded me, not so gently, that since I'm single and don't have kids, helping out should be the least I could do. I didn't text back right away. I needed time to cool off, to respond, not react. But when I got to the part where she said, "I just wanted us to have a fun family vacation and now you're acting like you were deeply wronged," I set my phone down and just broke a little inside. A few days later, Dad called. He wasn't mad, just sounded worried. "You're really going separately?" he asked. "Yeah, Dad," I said. I booked a hotel nearby, but I'll have my own room. I'll still join the family for outings. I just want to have some space this time. Lauren's pretty upset, he said. I nodded to myself. I used to be upset too, Dad. Really upset. But nobody ever seemed to notice. He didn't argue. He just sighed and said, I get it. 3 days after that, Lauren sent one more message in the group chat. Couldn't have been clearer if she tried. Enjoy your personal vacation, Aaron. But don't expect the family to be thrilled if you bail on everything just because you want your so-called freedom. You don't get to do that. I didn't bother replying. Instead, I went ahead and added an extra layer of privacy to my hotel booking just in case. I mapped out my whole schedule, a coastal craft workshop, a sunrise hike, and of course, an afternoon wandering my favorite gallery. This trip wasn't going to be about babysitting or stuffing down my frustration like before. I had spent way too much of my 20s trying to keep the peace, making everything smooth for everyone else while my own needs got pushed to the bottom of the list. This time I was finally going to make sure I was heard. The night before we all headed out, Mom sent one last message. We'll wait for you at the rest stop, like we planned. Even if you're not riding with us, I hope you'll still meet up. I sat there reading it, feeling a familiar ache in my chest. It's not that I hated them. I didn't. I just couldn't keep playing a part that left me drained and invisible anymore. At dawn, I hit the road early. The air was crisp and smelled like the start of something good. I tossed my suitcase neatly into the back seat, turned on my favorite playlist, and drove with the windows cracked just a little. For the first time in a long while, I was going somewhere purely for me, not because somebody else expected it. And no matter what happened on this trip, I was determined not to let anyone shove me back into the role I'd been stuck in for years. This trip was mine, and I planned on living every second of it. I had just checked into the hotel when my phone buzzed. I didn't even need to look to know who it was. I took a steady breath and picked up. Where are you? Lauren's voice came through cold and sharp. I just checked in, I said, keeping my tone even. Got my own room, like I said I would. Private room. She barked out this dry, humorless laugh. Aaron, are you seriously doing this? Turning a family vacation into your own personal escape? I'm still joining in on the group stuff, I said slowly, making sure every word was clear. But I've also got the right to rest the way I need to. I can't believe this, Lauren snapped. I'm over here juggling 3 kids. Tyler is always tied up with work calls and Mom and Dad aren't getting any younger. Who's supposed to help me if you just take off like this? I shut my eyes for a second, grounding myself before I answered. Lauren, I'm not disappearing. I'm just not signing up to be the unpaid help again. I'm not 19 anymore. But you're still single, you've got no kids, and no real responsibilities except yourself, she shot back, her voice rising, sharp and accusing. You've got all this free time, Aaron. And me? I'm drowning here. Is it really asking so much for you to help a little? I gripped the phone tighter, feeling the old guilt try to creep in. I'm not your burnout plan, Lauren. I've got a job. I've got a life too. And I need rest just like you do. For a second, she didn't say anything. Then I heard it, tears in her voice. I'm exhausted, Aaron. I haven't had a decent night's sleep in months. You're free, you're relaxed, and I'm stuck in this endless, grinding cycle. And you can't even sacrifice a little bit to help me. My heart hurt for her, it really did. But I didn't cave. You chose this life, Lauren. You chose motherhood. And I respect that. But you can't expect me to give up my life because you're overwhelmed by yours. So now it's all about you, she bit out. No, I said, steady and clear. It's about knowing where my limits are. And realizing that if I don't protect them, nobody else will. The line went quiet, then the call ended without another word. I put the phone down, my heart thudding in my chest. I knew what was coming next. Lauren would tell Mom. And sure enough, not even an hour later, Mom's name popped up on my screen. She wasn't yelling, but I could hear the disappointment woven into every word. Aaron, what are you doing? Lauren's really hurt. Couldn't you just be a little more flexible? I took a deep breath and answered as calmly as I could. Mom, last year I bent myself every which way to be flexible. I gave up my time, my energy, my rest. I barely even slept. And the only thing anyone ever asked me was if I could do more for Lauren. There was silence on the other end. I love this family, I went on, my voice thick, but I'm done being the one who's only seen when there's a problem to fix. If that's all you see me as, then maybe this isn't the vacation for me. Mom let out a heavy sigh. You've changed, Aaron. I've grown up, Mom, I said quietly. I didn't know if they truly understood, or if they just thought I was throwing some kind of rebellion. But inside I knew one thing for sure: for the first time, I hadn't folded under the weight of their expectations. And whatever happened next, I wasn't going back to being the person who said yes just to keep the peace. That night, I took a walk along the beach by myself. The sky blazed gold with the sunset, and the ocean breeze tugged at my hair. I felt lighter, clearer. For the first time in my life, I realized that maybe it was okay if not everyone was happy with my choices, because at least I wasn't betraying myself. I'd never been the kind of person to post about my private life online, especially not family drama. But after Mom's call, after Lauren's passive-aggressive texts that just kept piling up, I felt like I was suffocating. I needed a place to let it out, not to vent, but just to make sense of it all. So, I made an anonymous Reddit account. I found a casual life stories subreddit and wrote my heart out. I told them about last year's trip, how I ended up sleeping in a cramped room with 3 kids while my sister got her own suite. I talked about how my family assumed that since I wasn't married or a mom, my time was just free for the taking. I kept the details vague: no names, no places, just the truth. At the end of my post I asked, am I wrong for wanting a real vacation for myself? I didn't expect much. Maybe a few kind words, maybe a little advice. Instead, it blew up. Within a few hours, there were hundreds of comments. Most people sided with me. Some said I'd been way too patient. Others said I should have set boundaries a long time ago. And a whole lot of them shared their own stories where self-sacrifice was expected and wanting a little independence somehow made you the villain. I read every comment. I laughed at a few. I cried at a couple. Mostly I just sat there, feeling this strange mix of sadness and relief. Maybe I wasn't so wrong after all. I felt a mix of relief and sadness. Relief that I wasn't alone, that other people understood what it felt like to be pushed into the background of your own life, and sad that so many of us had been shoved into side roles without even realizing it. Then something happened that I hadn't expected at all. Lauren saw the post. She called me at 7 in the morning, just as I was sipping coffee out on my hotel balcony, watching the sun climb over the ocean. "Did you write that?" she snapped, her voice slicing through the air. I stayed calm. "You recognized it was me?" "How could I not?" she barked. "You think you're anonymous? You described everything down to the last detail. Everyone knows it's about me." "I never mentioned any names," I said quietly. "But you made me a laughingstock in front of thousands," she cried. "Do you know how many people are calling me selfish now?" "I didn't make anyone say anything, Lauren," I told her. "They're just reacting to what they read. And what I wrote, it was the truth." There was a pause on the line. Then the crying started, not the hurt kind of crying, but furious, shaking tears. "You ruined my image, Aaron. You humiliated me for the whole world to see." I didn't argue. Because deep down, I knew the truth. It was never about how people felt with Lauren. It was always about appearances. A few hours later, I got a text from Mom. "Did you really post about our family online?" I took a deep breath and typed back, "Yes, Mom." Because if I hadn't spoken up, nobody would have listened. At first, she was angry. She said I was ungrateful, that I'd hurt my sister. But later, she started reading not just my post, but the hundreds of comments underneath it. Words from strangers, fair, honest, and without any family bias. That evening, she called again. Her voice was softer this time. "I didn't realize people would see it that way," she said. "I thought you were exaggerating." "Mom," I asked quietly, "how many times have I been telling you the same thing?" And nobody listened, until someone else said it. After that call, I didn't hear from Lauren anymore. But Dad called. He kept it short. "Your mom and I talked to your sister," he said. "We all need to sit down for a real conversation. But before that, I just want you to know, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. I'm sorry about everything." I sat there stunned. I honestly couldn't remember the last time I'd heard my dad say those words out loud. Later that night, I got a message from someone I never expected, Tyler, Lauren's husband. "I'm sorry for letting them take advantage of you," he wrote. "I'm talking to Lauren. She needs to change." For the first time in years, it felt like someone in the family actually had my back. Not because it was convenient. Not because it kept the peace. But because they finally saw the truth for what it was. 3 days after my post blew up, Mom called again. This time, her voice was heavy, almost weighed down. "Aaron, the vacation's canceled." I froze, not from shock exactly, but from the rush of emotions that hit me all at once. Part of me felt this wave of relief. Another part felt an ache deep in my chest. I had wanted a real vacation after years of putting everyone else first. But now, instead of the freedom I fought for, it felt like I had detonated something too big, too loud. Since your post, Mom sighed, Lauren's barely speaking to anyone. Tyler left. He's staying with his parents in Olympia. Your dad and we need time to think. That one sentence told me more than a whole conversation could have. Things had gone way deeper than I'd realized. That night, I got another message from Tyler. I want to meet up, just the two of us. Not through Lauren. Not through your parents. We met the next day at a quiet little cafe not far from my hotel. Tyler showed up right on time. He looked tired, sure, but his eyes were clearer than I'd ever seen them. No dodging eye contact, no awkwardness like at family dinners. Thank you for being brave enough to say something, he said, sitting down across from me. I knew Lauren had control issues, but I didn't realize how bad it was. I didn't need to ask what he meant. I knew. It's hard to believe you didn't notice, I said, not cruelly, just honest. Tyler shook his head, regret heavy in his expression. She told me she gave you money, he admitted. She even described it in detail. Said she left cash for you on the kitchen counter. Every time I asked, she had some reason why you didn't mention it. I gave a dry laugh, shaking my head. If there was an envelope, Tyler, it must have been meant for someone else, 'cause I never saw it. He nodded. I checked the bank statements. I asked her straight out. Turns out she only gave you cash a couple times for pizza or snacks. The rest? She kept it. I didn't feel angry anymore. Just tired. Tired and sad. I love Lauren, Tyler said quietly. But I'm not gonna let her walk all over you just because you're the quieter one. I met his gaze. So what are you going to do about it? Tyler leaned forward slightly. First, she's going to apologize. Properly. And second, she's going to pay back every penny she owes you. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I sat there thinking about all the things my mom used to say. In a family, someone has to be the one who bends. But this wasn't about not loving them. It was about finally learning to love myself, too. The next morning, there was a knock on my hotel door. It was Lauren. Her eyes were puffy and red, and she was holding an envelope. Tyler stood behind her, arms crossed over his chest. I'm sorry, she said, her voice so small I almost didn't catch it. For taking advantage of your kindness. For lying. For trying to turn a family vacation into a way to control you. I didn't say anything right away. I just stood there silent. She held out the envelope. This is the money I owe you, she said. Every cent. Tyler made me double-check it all. I didn't open it. I just looked her straight in the eyes and asked the question that had been sitting heavy on my heart. Do you think things can ever go back to the way they were? She shook her head slowly. No, Lauren said quietly. And maybe that's actually a good thing. I felt the corners of my mouth lift. Not quite a full smile, but something softer, a little bittersweet. I need help, Lauren added after a second. Tyler wants me to start seeing a therapist. I agreed, she said, her voice wavering, but I'm not sure I can fix everything. I answered carefully, taking my time with the words. You don't have to fix everything overnight. But if you start by respecting other people, especially the quiet ones, that's already a pretty big step. Lauren nodded. For the first time, she didn't look like the powerful big sister I had always known. She just looked like someone trying to find herself again after a long string of bad choices. And even though the vacation hadn't gone anything like I thought it would, it ended up giving me something better than any sunset or beach party could have. It gave me clarity. It gave Lauren a mirror to really see herself. And it gave our family a small opening, a real shot at changing, or at least learning how to try. 2 weeks after the original trip got canceled, I got a call from Dad. He didn't say much, just offered gently. Erin, your mom and I would like to take you out to dinner this Saturday. Your favorite place, the Pines. I hesitated, the silence hanging heavy between us. But then I nodded, even though he couldn't see me. Maybe after everything, we all needed a dinner without finger-pointing, without guilt. A fresh start. That evening, when I walked into the restaurant, Mom stood up first and pulled out a chair for me. That had never happened before. Dad smiled at me, a little awkward, kind of like a teacher who had just stumbled through his lesson but still wanted to do right. Before the appetizers even hit the table, Mom spoke up. We're sorry, she said. For not listening. For putting burdens on you that you never should have carried. I looked at her, really looked, and for once she didn't seem like this unshakable figure. Not smaller in size, but smaller in a way that made her feel more human. More honest. We're planning another trip, Dad chimed in. This time you can travel separately, stay wherever you want. You'll join activities only if you feel like it. No one's going to ask you to babysit. We promise. I raised an eyebrow. And Lauren? I asked. Mom and Dad exchanged a glance before she answered. She's in counseling. Tyler helped convince her. And honestly, she's starting to understand she needs to change. I didn't answer right away. A part of me still feared these promises would melt away like morning mist. But another part, a part one hadn't trusted in a long time, wanted to believe. All right, I said finally. I'll go. But I'm driving myself and I'm booking my own room. And if anyone tries to shove me back into the babysitter role, I'll leave. No warnings. Dad gave a serious nod. Mom did too, smaller but real. A week later, our family group chat popped back to life with a new title. Beach Trip Reset Version. Everyone kept things light, tossing around emojis and beach memes. Even Lauren only sent a few smiley faces, no bossy directions, no demands. I quietly booked a hotel about half a mile from the family's place, close enough to join dinner if I wanted, but far enough that I could escape whenever I needed. The morning of departure, I woke early, brewed some coffee, packed up the car, and rolled out of the city before the sun fully rose. No frantic calls from Mom asking if I was on my way. No guilt-tripping texts from Lauren. Nothing but peace. For the first time, I felt like a real adult inside my own family. When I checked into my hotel, I asked the front desk to keep my room information private, only to be shared in case of a real emergency. The receptionist smiled warmly and said, "A lot of guests do that. You're all set." I smiled back. I had finally learned that setting boundaries wasn't selfish. It was self-respect. Later that afternoon, we all met up at a little seafood place by the beach. The whole crew was there, even Lauren, Tyler, and the boys. But this time, Lauren brought someone new. A young nanny named Sophie, bright, cheerful, and clearly a pro. "Thanks for coming," Lauren said as we met, and for the first time, there were no strings hanging off her words. I nodded. Maybe, just maybe, something really had changed. Throughout dinner, nobody brought up last year. Nobody asked me to wrangle kids or wipe spills or run bathroom trips. I sat next to Dad and told him about a design project I was working on for a boutique hotel. And for once he listened. Really listened, like what I said mattered every bit as much as anything Lauren ever shared. When dinner wrapped up, I walked back to my hotel on my own. Nobody followed me, nobody pulled me aside, nobody begged me to stay. I opened my room door and stood there for a minute, soaking it in. True peace. The next morning I woke up to soft sunlight seeping through the curtains. No pounding on the door. No shouting down the hallway. Just stillness. I brewed coffee, put on some soft music, and sat out on the balcony with a brand new book I just picked up. This was how a real vacation should feel. Later that morning, after a lazy breakfast buffet at the hotel, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Mom. "We're heading to the seaside park this afternoon. Wanna join?" I smiled to myself and typed back simply, "I'll come by later if I'm free." No promises. No pressure. Most importantly, no guilt. Around 10, I visited a local art gallery I'd been wanting to see since last year. I wandered through the exhibits, studying the brush strokes and the stories behind the colors. And standing there in the middle of that quiet, beautiful space, I finally realized. This vacation, it really, truly belonged to me. Just as I was leaving the gallery and thinking about grabbing a coffee by the beach, my phone buzzed again. It was Sophie, the nanny Lauren had hired. "Hi, Erin," she said, sounding a little nervous. "I'm sorry to bother you, but Lauren asked if you could watch the boys for about 15 minutes. She said it's urgent." I didn't answer right away. A cold, familiar chill ran down my spine. I took a slow, steadying breath. "Sophie, I think you're doing a great job," I said carefully. "But I'm not the babysitter. If Lauren had something urgent, she should have planned ahead or made other arrangements." "I understand," Sophie said quickly. "I'm just doing what she told me to." "That's okay," I said warmly. "You're just doing your job. Thanks for letting me know." I hung up and immediately texted Tyler. "Your sister's trying to pass the kids off to me again, this time through Sophie." 3 minutes later, my phone rang. Tyler's voice was tight with frustration. "Thanks for telling me," he said. "I'll handle it." That afternoon, when I finally made it to the seaside park a little late, the whole energy had shifted. Lauren didn't meet my eyes. Tyler was off playing soccer with the boys, laughing and kicking the ball around. Mom walked over to me, holding a lemonade, and said softly, "We heard about what happened earlier." "I'm sorry, Erin." Lauren should have known better. I just gave a small nod. I wasn't here to argue. I was here to live my life the way I had promised myself I would. Later, as the family lounged under the trees, Lauren finally spoke up. No sarcasm, no snark, just a simple, quiet sentence. "Thank you for not making a scene earlier." I looked at her, calm and steady. "I don't need to raise my voice for someone to understand when they've crossed a line," I said. "I've said enough." Tyler gave a small, silent nod, backing me up without a single word. And after that, nobody dared bring up the idea of me helping out again. The next few days passed in peace. I took long walks by myself, stopped at seaside cafes, and even made friends with a local artist who invited me to join an outdoor painting class. It felt light, easy, mine. Whenever there were family activities, dinners, a trip to the aquarium, a beach barbecue, I joined when I wanted. It was fun because it was on my own terms. Never out of guilt or duty. I wasn't avoiding anyone. I just wasn't letting myself be dragged back into an old, tired role either. On the last day of the trip, the whole family gathered on the beach. The sunset turned the waves gold, and the sky stretched out in every shade of orange and pink. Lauren came and sat next to me, no phone in hand, no frantic energy chasing after the kids. "You've really changed," she said quietly. And I think I'm starting to accept that. I didn't say anything. I just smiled small, real. Because I knew real change doesn't come from promises. It comes from standing firm, from saying no even when people don't like it. This vacation hadn't been perfect. But it was the first time I truly felt free around my family. Not because they were completely different, but because I had changed first. And I had finally kept my boundaries strong. When I got back home and returned to my design studio, life slipped back into its normal rhythm. Work, emails, drafts, all of it. But underneath the routine, I knew something fundamental had shifted. Not just in me but in my family too. One afternoon, while sorting out designs for a hotel project, I spotted an email from Tyler with the subject line, "Update on Lauren." I clicked it open, not knowing what to expect. Tyler wrote, "I took Lauren to her first therapy session this morning. It wasn't easy, but she didn't blow up like before. She actually listened." He shared that the therapist had said something that left both him and Lauren stunned. Being a mother doesn't mean losing your personhood. But it also doesn't give you the right to make others carry your responsibilities. Tyler told me that Lauren cried through half the session when she realized how much she had used motherhood, not just as a shield, but as a weapon. Especially against me. At the end of the message, Tyler wrote, "I'm sorry it got this far. But thank you, Aaron. If you hadn't stood your ground, Lauren might never have looked at herself." I didn't respond right away. Not because I was angry, but because I needed a quiet moment just to sit with the feeling. Growth. Real growth. From the very person who once made me feel invisible. 3 weeks later, Lauren texted me asking if I'd meet her for lunch. At first, I hesitated. Old instincts kicked in, doubts, memories. But I said yes. We met at a small cafe near the park where she used to take the boys. No kids. No interruptions. Just us. Lauren arrived on time for the first time in years, with no complaints, no demands. "I've been to 4 sessions so far," she began. And every time, I realized how much I never actually listened. Not to Tyler, not to Mom and Dad, and especially not to you. I let her talk. I didn't interrupt. "I think," she said slowly, growing up as the oldest, being the adult in the house too early. I got stuck thinking everything had to revolve around me. And when I had kids, I panicked. Instead of asking for help, I just expected it. Especially from you. I nodded slightly. "I understand," I said. But then I added steady. "Understanding doesn't mean accepting." Lauren gave a sad little smile and nodded back. "Tyler hired a full-time nanny last week," she said. "Sophie's staying long-term now, handling school runs, helping teach the kids basic life skills. And I'm not asking for your help anymore. I just hope someday you'll see I'm trying. I'm really trying." I looked at her, really looked. I saw the tiredness, sure, but none of the old pride. Instead, there was something better. Something real. Humility. Clarity. The kind that only comes after you finally stop running from yourself.